need to go to the deeper level of the keystroke level, because we will have a separate sessions for that. But from a collection perspective, so that operations team can have a better idea on the template which we were talking about and during our calls, which template it is. So that will be a good idea to show that. And you can also show that you mentioned about the template doesn't have a, that liability, just have a liability, not the asset. Some of the issues which you face, like bulk uploading, etc., you can show that as well, so that I can have this recorded, so that operation teams have a good view before they start the KT. Making
I think,
sense?
yeah. So, I mean, I think, sorry, Vinny, to come in, but I really think it's important, I mean, just explaining the process, I mean, like actually Nanku did in the previous session, is not actually sufficient, because you actually need to see what the template looks like,
Sure.
what is sitting behind that template, and you actually need to document the end-to-end process at the end of the day, because remember that this is only part of the process that actually Nanku does. So, I mean, it's important that, for example, Nanku share, for example, that lease identification question, the one that you've got with the flow diagram, Nanku, and whatever other tabs, that go with that. It's also quite important that you explain, I mean, the Power BI dashboard and how that works, and, basically the controls, Nanku, as well, that you've got that, that goes with, so that the end-to-end process is actually documented. And I also think, Nanku, before we conclude, is just from a regional perspective, if you can just provide Vineet with the names that you deal with from a regional perspective. Like, I know Brazil, I think it's Gabby and Ayara. In South Africa, it's basically Tracy Lee, and then the rest for Africa as well. So, I mean, I think it's important that, because we are going to be looking at also the SAP processing of leases when we do the blueprinting at the sites, and that is part of wave 2. So it's also important that we need to get the details there, so that he can then basically formulate the end-to-end process.
Yes.
Okay. Thanks, Nanku.
Yes.
Thanks.
And Pariksha, just to let you know, from the KT perspective, you are aware about the KT process, right? Where people will come and sit with Nanku and understand how she is doing it. So blueprinting is mostly
Yeah, but sorry, Vineet, sorry to interject. Leases is one of those things that has created a lot of to and fro, before we could even actually take it for blueprinting as well. Does it remain with the retained organization, or basically is this something that can be done by Genpact? So there was a lot of internal discussion around this. Okay. And I think before we go to KT, that is why we need this end-to-end process actually discussed. And I do know Margot, for example, has set up some time with Mara. We're going to speak to Mara about leases in Brazil as well. So there's quite a bit of socializing that we need to do as well. And before we even go to KT, we would need alignment with actually business. This is the part of the process that can be done by Genpact, and this is part of the process that would be retained. But we don't know, I mean, those answers yet, right? Which is important why we need to look at this end to end.
Okay.
Okay. Does it make sense, Vineet?
Yeah, makes sense. Just wanted to clarify that the documentations of the SOPs, keystroke, and all those are the part of KT. So I would be understanding, as you said, end to end. Nanku mentioned certain things, and I will be understanding the certain things from other aspect also to make it end to end. And the goal is to what comes to Genpact, what doesn't come to Genpact. But here the goal is not to how to fill the template. Just to let you know.
The goal, well, here the goal is to explain the process behind the template, and how that template is then used to take the process forward, because ultimately it's that first actually template that will decide whether this is a lease or not. If it's no, then there is no lease. So basically that template is a start of the process, basically.
Okay.
Okay. Thanks, Nanku. Over to you.
Okay. Should I share my screen?
Yes.
Okay. You can just confirm when you can see my screen.
It's coming.
Yes, we can.
Okay, so this is our IFRS 16 template. We call it Appendix 16. The first tab just gives some guidance around the accounting, explaining how IFRS 16 works. We've also then gone and updated it and put in sort of a diagram process to make it more understandable. So the regions would generally start with documenting which contract it is that they are assessing. we split it between new contracts and amendments to existing contracts. This then gets signed off by the supply chain team, who would have prepared it, and then someone would review it. And then from finance, there would also be a sign off from someone who would have, I suppose, looked at it in terms of assessing the contracts and then reviewed it as well. So once they've detailed the contracts that they will be assessing for new contracts, they would then move to the B tab, which is our questionnaire.
From this template, and can I interrupt you with one question, please, if you don't mind?
Yeah.
Okay, so this signing off, is it a digital sign off? Is it or just they put the name there?
Some of the regions PDF it and they sign it electronically. Some of them print it out and physically sign it and scan it back. We're not prescriptive on how the sign off takes place.
Okay, so it just had to be responsibility should be given. Okay, and from the region perspective, you mentioned about which region is the Africa region? Is it correct?
So each region would then just put in the name of the region or the site that is applicable.
Okay, region means what region we are covering here? Is it just Africa?
It would be the business unit. So across the group, we've got different business units. So Brazil will complete one, Africa will complete one, and from an Africa business unit perspective, each site then completes one.
Okay.
Australia will complete a consolidated one for both Tropicana and Sunrise Dam.
Okay.
We'll also get from Colombia and from CVSA.
Okay.
And from North America as well.
Just a question from my side, Nkuleko. When you say Africa, do they include South Africa under Africa or not?
No. When we talk South Africa, we talk corporate.
Okay.
Interesting.
So Veneer, just so that you're aware, South Africa is not part of Africa, right?
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. I don't know in terms of the business model. Maybe Parisha might be able to provide insight. But for our purposes, we don't consider them part of it.
It's the same on my side, So for instance, South Africa falls under Jimmy, where Africa falls under Imesh, So
correct. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So all these regions fill their template, and this is a standard template. There's no two templates, right? Just one.
It's a standard template, correct. We do have instances, and I'll show you when we get into the other tabs, where some of the regions will start to customize the template, and then it's not really standard. It's not serious customization that we see, but they do customize it to their own preferences, but it doesn't change the underlying data that then gets input.
Data, and your processing also doesn't change, right? Because of that customer. Okay.
Yeah. Parisha?
Thanks, Nanku. I think for Vineet's sake, it's important to mention that this is quarterly. I mean, it does mention it is somewhere so quarterly, but this is actually quarterly, and there's a SOX control that's linked to this template as well. So I think important
the control that's linked to this template is a regional control. We don't have a group control for this.
Okay, but from a regional perspective, it is signed off from a SOX perspective. So when he does do the conversation with actually Brazil, for example, it's important that he picks up that control as well. So the end-to-end process again is documented.
Correct. So the regions have a control for the sign-off of this, and then once the sign-off is complete, they then send it to us.
Okay.
So for new contracts, they will then move to the B tab, which is the tab that guides them through the questionnaire. They will just
Nanku, if you don't mind, one question. So quarterly thing, you mentioned this template you received every month 10 days before the closing. So it is still valid, right?
This template is a template that is required quarterly, but where there are lease transactions, the template is sent in the month where the transactions then occur. So if that makes sense.
So this is a different template. Lease template is different.
It's the same template. It's the same template.
Okay.
So they would send the Excel workbook as well as the PDF. For quarterly purposes, we're more interested in the PDF sign-off, which is the summary of assessed contracts and any amendments. So I'll come to that amendments tab, and then the disclosure. So
I
on a
see.
quarterly basis, that's what they send us. They'll send us a PDF sign-off of tab A, tab C, and we'll then get an Excel version, which includes tab E. When there are lease transactions in a particular month, they will send this template, which is specific to that lease contract, which has the cash flow model for that contract.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's the same template. We just receive different tabs at different reporting periods.
Got it. And those are written in the instructions somewhere, right?
Yeah, in the guidance.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Okay. So the questionnaire is just basically the actual questionnaire form of this diagram of how to assess whether or not you have a contract. At the end, it'll give you a result of whether it is or isn't a lease, and then you can proceed to classifying the lease based either on low value, short term, or variable. And then it'll tell you based on these categories, if you have any one of these, that you should complete tab E. And if you don't have any of those categories, but you do have a lease, it means that the lease needs to be capitalized, and it will direct you to complete tab D, which is the cash flow model. So once you've finished assessing your contract and you say have a capitalized or a lease that should be capitalized, we then move to cash flow model tab D, and they would then input the details that relate to the lease, which is going to assist us in terms of calculating the NPV so that we can raise the initial rights of use asset and lease liability. So they would detail whatever assets it is that are in the contract and then fill out the cash flows for those specific assets. They would also bring in the discount rate, and it's formula driven to then compute an effective discount rate, and then it will work out what the NPV is based on what cash flows have then been input. We also have a breakdown where we then show the interest expense and the lease payment and then a closing liability. So just a little bit of a recon on the lease liability for...
Yeah, can you click on the cell if you don't mind? I just want to see the connections.
It's all formula driven.
Okay. And then you created this template or somebody else is owning this?
This is an AGA. This is an AGA created template.
AGA, yeah. And in some case, any changes are required, for example, or some formula is not working. So who do you contact?
So if there's something wrong in tab D, which is the cash flow model, we can fix that. We've recently worked with Deloitte to design this questionnaire template. If something breaks on the template, because I worked so closely with Craig, I am able to fix it myself.
Okay, very good.
Okay. Then we've also got, so this would then be the monthly breakdown on the interest, and then we've also got a quarterly view of the same thing, which is just a breakdown in the movement on the lease liability. So that would be this part. I would use these inputs to go into Nomos, which I'll do just now. I just want to finish explaining the rest of the tabs. So that would be then for a lease that needs to be capitalized. If they complete the questionnaire and it turns out that the lease is what we call an income statement lease, so either low value, short term, or variable, they would then complete the leases disclosure template, which is tab E, by just detailing the site, contract number, vendor name, and all the details as you see it. This template is cumulative, and so every quarter they would update the same template so that we have completeness of our income statement leases. They would then also just put the payments in quarterly, and then there's a formula that pulls out a year-to-date view. When we spoke about the bulk upload, the hope at the time was that we would be able to use this template to bulk upload the income statement leases into Nomos. We've now subsequently learned that it's not possible for us to do that. So we would still then use this template to then go into Nomos and record the income statement leases, but then it also requires us to do a bit of a pivot as well, so that we can double check that the inputs in Nomos were correctly input, and that everything is then agreeing to what we've got here. The leases here would also be put in their respective contract currencies. And so there is a leg of translation that needs to happen so that we can get a USD number to put into the financial statements. And that's why the pivot table also then assists, because once we have all of the leases recorded, we can, or rather all of the expense transactions recorded, we can then translate it from the pivot, because Nomos doesn't have translation capabilities. Pariksha mentioned the Power BI template that I also spoke to you about in our previous session. When we built our Power BI template, we didn't include the income statement leases. So that has to be a manual translation that we do in Excel or for the pivot table. Okay. Then that was the process for new contracts.
So here the AUD for Australian currency. So is this template is converting, or you are just inputting here so that later on it will be converted?
It's just an input that they send to us so that later on we can put it into Nomos. There's also a control that is related to this.
Okay.
That sits at corporate, and for SOX purposes, we then do a pivot to agree the numbers so that we can confirm completeness and accuracy of the income statement leases.
Yes.
I think, Nonko, it's important. Sorry, Vineet. I think it's important to flag that this is purely for disclosure purposes, right? This is needed for the AFS for year-end actually disclosure. It doesn't change your P&L number, because this is just to distinguish between the type of lease in terms of IFRS 16. The bigger one, that we focused on from a Nomos perspective is more the capitalized leases, which is why focus was placed on the capitalized leases, Vineet.
Okay, so that's a cash flow model then.
Yes.
Okay.
Where you have your leased asset and leased liability.
Okay.
Yeah. So this part fits into what I explained.
Once again, I was asking something. It's okay. You keep going.
Okay. I was just saying this fits into. Oh yeah.
Just to have an idea about the volumes. So how many contracts are there in each quarter? Just an average.
In terms of the capitalized ones or the income statement
in terms
disclosure?
Of capitalized.
Capitalized, I don't have a quarterly number for you, but I've worked out on average for the year in terms of new contracts and extensions, we were averaging about 30 to 32 in the last 3 years. In terms of modifications where there's a rate change, I haven't worked that out. I don't have that number immediately off the top of my head. I only have the other number because someone asked me similar information last week.
No, okay. No, it's just to have an idea.
Cool.
And is there a repository for the contracts, or you just take the information from the regions?
We receive the information from the regions, and in Nomos, we are able to upload the contract into the specific lease contract that you are then raising.
Yeah. So in that case, you are able to perform a double check if needed, right?
What would the double check be?
Yes, the double check to understand if the answers in the sheet B were rightly sent by the regions, right?
We are
just if you have any question, or if there is something that you have doubts, so you can check the contract.
So we receive contracts where the answer is yes, that there is a lease. So where there is a lease, then they send the contract to us. But if they've assessed the contract and there is no lease, then we will never have sight of that contract.
Okay.
Okay.
Pariksha, I think you wanted to say something.
I think, Nonko, maybe it's important if you can just actually specify what is the total number of leases we have at the moment in terms of balance sheet leases, new and existing? Well, total population.
I think maybe about 150, maybe. Not
150.
More than that.
Okay.
Yeah,
and then,
in that region.
And what is the balance sheet? So if you take your, if you take half year, for example, what is the total? What was the value of your leased assets in USD, and what is the value of your lease liabilities in USD?
I would have to double check, but I can, because we didn't do receipts at half year.
But I think while Nonko pulls that up, it's also important just to flag that from a materiality perspective, this is actually quite high. And your income statement disclosure leases, I think the last time I recall, Nonku, it was close to $1 billion, right? It was about $900 million between variable, short-term, and low value.
Yes, with variable being the highest.
Highest. Okay.
I just want to, sorry. You know what information is closely available? The year end. I can tell you at year end what our assets look like, our assets and our liabilities.
And I think, Andre, just so that you're aware, one of the risks that we've had with leases previously is the completeness of lease. Well, I mean, basically one of the biggest risks we have is actually the completeness of leases. Previously, we had leases that we had on the books, but the actual equipment was never delivered to site. You know, that was for one of the leases we picked up a couple of years ago. And I think, Nonku, you picked up like the reverse order, you know, where there is equipment on site, but then it's only actually communicated sometime later, you know. So we do have this communication problem, you know, in terms of the completeness of leases. And we're hoping that a portion of this can be addressed through SAP Ariba, because when we were designing SAP Ariba, when that initial contract assessment actually takes place, we have indicated for a lease filter, to come through from supply chain. And we started a couple of years ago giving training to the supply chain staff on how they need to identify a lease, on what they need to look out for a contract. Obviously, if it's services, there is no asset, so there is no lease. So we did roll that training out a couple of years ago. And then over the last few months, we've just been so busy with so many things that, yeah.
So, Parisha, you mentioned about Ariba. Can you give a little bit background? How's impacting the process
It's
here?
still, no, it's still very much in early stages of basically
Okay.
implementation. So, yeah.
So-
But
Okay,
yeah,
so this is already
it's still being
started.
rolled out.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's probably started, but very lightly started, and
Okay.
it's not been rolled out to all the regions.
But does it have impact on Nomos that?
No. So we planned in future that it will, it'll be the first filter. So it'll be the first filter to actually indicate if there's a lease or not. But that's not in practice at the moment.
Okay,
That's for the
right.
future. Yeah.
I see. Okay, so because normally in the blueprinting, I write the in-flight projects also, which will impact the process. So do you think it is worthwhile to mention that Ariba would be helping out in this initial lease contracts?
I think you can mention it, but it's, as far as I understand it, Andre, I think you had a discussion recently with Sam, right? I don't think the supply chain team, they've got so many multiple competing priorities that Ariba right now, we're not really sure. So I think
Okay,
we can
let's keep
flag
it
it, we
out.
can document it, but yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. Sam told me that it's not for this year, so maybe for the next year, but there are many process design and discussions that have to be done. So I don't think that it's something that we have to take into consideration for this moment,
Sure. Thank you.
unfortunately.
So asset is 123 million.
Yeah, as at year end, and the lease liability, the total liability is 141, but then split between current and non-current is 65 and 76. This
Your
was at
income
year end.
statement.
Income statement.
Also, it is very varied. So it is reducing a lot, 65 only. So from 115.
Oh, 150 was the number. So the physical count.
No.
Of,
It is starting on 2022. It is 115
the
through.
comparative.
If I go to the liability side. So, it is consistently reducing.
So here's the asset at 123, and the income statement leases, which is the disclosure. So that's tab E. That comes from, or rather that translates into this piece in the financials.
Right to use assets 861.
This is the total cash. So this is this line. So all three of these lines plus the repayment line makes 861.
So expense side, this is $861 million.
Yeah, so that's the total cash flow for leases.
Okay. So this is okay. So this in this scenario, we are paying this money, is it?
Correct.
Okay. So we are leasing the things from other people. Okay.
That's correct.
Okay.
We,
I
we
was
don't have
understanding a
we
vice
don't have any
versa.
instances. We don't have instances where we are the lessor. We
Oh,
don't.
okay.
Yeah. Okay.
So $1 billion. So can I say that from the volume perspective, 150 total leases, and there could be modifications which can come every month relating to that 150. And you mentioned close to last time, it can go up to 18 also in a month sometimes.
Yeah, but 18 is like a really rough month, and normally the bulk of that would come from Brazil because they tend to have a lot of modifications on their leases.
Okay. So is it fair to say that on average, if I take half of 18, 9 every month is a modifications and changes and new leases, etc.?
Yeah, I think that's a fair number.
Okay. And Pariksha mentioned about this assets and liabilities. So assets is 123, liabilities is how much?
141.
Liabilities is 141. Okay. Okay. I'm just taking this number. This is not my transactions is more important for me, but I've noted it. Thank you.
Okay.
Sorry, Vineet. I think the one thing just to quantify here is that the capitalized leases is about 150 leases. Your income statement leases, Nonku, that's a completely different number, right?
Correct.
So capitalized leases means the new ones are 150.
It means
The
the ones
balance
on the
sheet
balance
leases.
sheet, the ones that are on the balance sheet that form part of the right of use asset and the lease liability.
Okay. And the income one which you mentioned are transactions?
Yeah, there's more than that. So it's difficult to say on the income statement leases, right? Because we also don't look at it on the individual. I suppose I could pull a report out of Nomos
Yes,
to confirm
because
that
if you
number.
give the transactions so that I can understand the effort, somehow, because I mentioned the overall, you mentioned 3 days of work in total 24 hours. But if
That
it is
doesn't include that doesn't include the income statement leases.
okay.
Remember the income statement leases I told you was that piece of work at year end that took us about 2 weeks to get in.
Yeah. Okay. So that is additional. But overall, it is, I can say, other than the income leases, it is close to 3, still valid, right? 3 days of work, 24 hours for
just for the
everything.
balance sheet leases.
Okay. In the volume wise, I understood it. In case you can break out the volume also, I don't want hourly, just to match with that. I have a total work. This is good at this point. But in case you can break that out, the volumes which you mentioned, Nanku, that asset, liabilities, income, and how many numbers are there. And in case that can match up with 24, it will be great. But it is not a big push right now. So just see how much information you can provide to match up both the sides.
So just to confirm that I understand you correctly, you would want the exact count of how many capitalized leases we have?
Average,
and the exact
it's
count
approximate counts. How many are capitalized, how many this, and what are the work is there so that it makes up 24 hours.
Okay.
On average. So it is on average. I know it is a spike and up and down, but we have to see from the operation what is a peak which can go, right? So
I don't think I understand that part.
maybe Andrea is understanding this. The peak is basically what happens, sometimes, you have to devote 15 hours due to some reason, right? So just wanted to understand that those peaks are not there. So average, if you give me average thing at this point, I'll reconcile that stuff.
So
Okay.
it's basically the efforts to make it to perform the process. So there are some efforts in the regional level for the people who complete the spreadsheet, and some efforts in the global level. And you are asking how many hours it takes, for example, in each quarter, or if it's needed in other parts of the month or in other days. So basically, we can understand the level of efforts. Correct? Is that
Right.
right?
That's correct. That's correct.
Okay. I'll see if I can break it out a bit better.
Yes.
Yeah, but just an estimation, a general estimation.
Just estimation. Don't
from
pressure
your
like
perception.
every minute or so, but just average that this is something is there.
Yeah. So
Okay,
as you
so
receive that 10 days before the closing in each quarter, so can you estimate how many hours it takes from you or from your team in every quarter?
Once I've received the appendices. So quarterly, there's not a lot of work on the leases. The bulk of the work for leases happens in the months where we have lease transactions, and then again at year end. From a quarterly perspective, we would receive the appendix. It's just checking that the appendix has been signed and checking that the tab has been completed. But in terms of doing any detail work on the appendix, we don't do detailed work quarterly. It's just making sure that everybody has submitted and they have completed. And then I suppose follow-ups for people who've not submitted on time.
I think on a monthly basis, Andre, so for example, if you take like, sometime middle in the month, Nonco will get an email from actually Brazil, and Brazil would have had 5 basically modifications to basically 5 of the different contracts. So each, for each contract, they would then submit a separate spreadsheet where they will then show, what the impact of that modification is. Nonco would then need to go into Nomos, and she would need to capture these 5 modifications. So every time there's a change to an existing lease contract, or if there's a new contract, it doesn't come at the end of the month. It comes during the month, and Nonco keeps that. Nonco, I'm right? And you keep that process live.
Yes, that's correct. Yeah.
Okay, so you don't wait for.
Basically get an update.
No, we can't wait because we've got 2. Yep.
Yeah, so much better, because then you can monitor well in the day by day, and then at the end of the month you can perform the closing, or you can just check if the closing shape is fine, and you can have this better validation in every quarter, right?
100%. Yeah. Nonco, go fit, Nonco, it's your process.
It's fine. So like Pariksha said, they start to send this about mid-month, and we then process those transactions. It does take about, on average, 3 days to get all the stuff in, and if there's any issues, to go back and forth with Nomos. In some months, it might take longer if there are, issues. If not, then, I think around a 3-day turnaround is fine. And then we give them back their transactions 4 days before the last working day of the month. So they would then receive a notification 4 days before the last working day of the month that all the transactions that they've fed through have been processed, and they can now extract reports from Nomos for month-end reporting purposes. So they have access to this way before the actual packs are due.
And I think, Andre, for your purposes, it's just important, just so that you know, is that Nomos is actually supported by a team out of New Zealand. It's actually a New Zealand-based application. So there's like a 10, 11-hour difference between South Africa. So when we log a query, it's when they wake up, and then when we get back. So over here and stuff, it does become very actually critical, from a timing perspective. But I think Nonco has been doing really well working with the Nomos team, and they've been very forthcoming in terms of responses. But it is just a risk to flag, from that perspective.
That would then be with new contracts. If there are amendments, they would then detail the amendments here. If there's an update that needs to happen to the cash flows, they would also then indicate it here that the cash flows need to be updated, and they would then update this cash flow model. If the amendment relates to an income statement lease, then its impact would be seen on tab E, but purely still just the expenditure that is related to the contract. And that's the template.
Okay, and you receive this by email, right?
Correct.
It's not like SharePoint, they upload it and send you a link. It's not like
No.
that. Okay.
No, they send it by email.
Yes. And I remember that question which I was thinking, the bulk upload, right? So in this tab, the bulk upload means there are the lines, serial number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 on the left, right? So you mean they cannot put many in one and then you can use that for uploading in the Nomos, correct? You have to do one by one?
You have to do it one by one.
Okay, got it. Thank you. That's definitely will reduce the work in case. And you raised this in the past, right? So that bulk upload is not working or something like that. Will this ease you in case this functionality comes in, the bulk upload?
Yeah, it would make things a lot easier if there was a bulk upload function, and we would be able to then upload the information quarterly like what we had envisioned, as opposed to waiting for year end.
Okay.
Nonku, but it is on the development pipeline, right? I think we have raised it as part of the development pipeline.
Yes.
So when we rolled out Nomis, I mean, we were promised all the bells and whistles, but then we soon actually realized that there was certain limitations and certain actually shortcomings. And we've got a development pipeline with them where they have started prioritizing some of the development for us.
Okay.
And I must say, in fairness, I think the more critical ones, like basically the audit controls, I mean, like the access to boards and stuff, I mean, they have actually come to the party with that. But we do have a development pipeline with them, and we meet with them on a quarterly basis. I mean, we've got an account manager, and we meet with them on a quarterly basis, where we also discuss this development pipeline.
I just noted bulk upload. And we don't have a timeline, right now, Pariksha?
They tried to give us timelines where they had something that we also requested, and it was sort of initially part of their own pipeline. They're more able to give us timelines, but where we're asking for features that they had initially not envisioned to add to Nomos, it does sometimes take time. So they've pledged to try to prioritize those, but we don't have concrete timelines for it.
Okay. No problem.
It all depends because you got to remember that Nomos is a software as a service, right? So there's other clientele on it. So they can't just modify stuff for EGA's purposes, where they've got bulk actually client demand. But
they prioritize that.
But we have been pushing them a lot, and I think they're coming around slowly but surely, Nonku. But I think they are coming around. Yeah.
No, at least we are working on it because it is a challenge, but there is something going on. So this is good.
Yeah.
Okay.
So are there any questions on the template still, or can I?
I think this is good. If you don't mind, I think, can you share this template, Nonku, so that I can keep in repository?
Yeah, I'll reply to the email that you sent.
Okay, perfect.
Reply all.
So, is there any policy or procedure or written procedure related to this process?
We have an accounting directive, but we don't have. We did previously have a workflow process that spoke to our SOX controls as well and actually outlined the process, but that process is quite outdated. We did do some work to update the process, but we updated it with the intention that leases would be decentralized and pushed down to the regions, like what Pariksha mentioned earlier. With leases, we're still sort of, there's a part that would still need to remain with business and a part that could then potentially go to shared services.
Yes.
No, very good.
So Andre, just so that you know, so we were looking at updating that process flow prior to shared services being introduced, because at that point in time, we were looking at a decentralized model where we wanted to shift responsibility to the sites. But with shared services up and running, we said, let's just hold back on that because there's actually potential for this work to move into a shared services environment, which is why we stalled that work and we said that we'll take it as part of this process.
Yes, good. So if you can send us these accounting directives, and also in terms of the procedure, you can send even not updated, So you can send to us and then we can just take a quick look.
Sure,
If you don't
yes.
mind.
And I think, yeah, and I think Nanko, what will help, when you gave the Nomos training, where you flagged, like with the different screenshots and stuff like that, there was that, that training pack. Maybe if you can just share that as well for context, Nanko.
Okay. Yes,
Ah,
great.
okay, so you used to provide trainings to the regions related to the process, right?
Nanko
that
used to
correct?
provide trainings, yes.
Yeah, that's very good. That's very good. It's very helpful for the regions to understand the global way of work on that, and the ratio or what are their responsibilities, the global responsibilities. Very good. So you can share that with us as well. Just to understand better the process, is there any internal audit or external audit findings related to this process in the moment
No,
or in the last reports? No. So is
So,
internal audit participating on the process
so basically,
somehow?
Andre, yeah, so Andre, you'd actually recall when we had our last shared services teams meeting, and I spoke about Nomos and I spoke about the ITGCs. So we did have an ITGC finding, but that was because of limitation in the system with regards to user access. But we've since now addressed that, and I'm going to be testing that because I'm the control owner there, and I'm going to be testing that for Q3. And if all goes well, because they have come and they have now basically introduced an audit log report, and that audit log report was effective from the 26th of August 2025, where they worked with us and they actually developed this audit log report. And if it is accepted by both actually PwC and by basically GIA, then that actually deficiency would be completely remediated. And and in the absence of that user report that was a system limitation, I did implement compensating control, which basically audit was happy with, but they kept the deficiency D because it was a system limitation. But I'll share that with you as well in a separate mail once I do the testing for Q3, so that you just get more basically insight into that, Andre.
Very good. Thank you.
Yeah. Nanku, this is a good point. You provide the trainings and you also deal with the Deloitte also in case something has to be done. You are the contact person.
Our work with Deloitte is not ongoing. We had them as a consultant to assist us with the migration from TM1 into Nomos. And subsequent to migrating, or rather during the migration process, we became aware of certain limitations in the Nomos system, and Deloitte then assisted with creating, how can I say, they created interim tools for us to use to address those limitations so that we could still then complete our normal reporting process. One of those tools,
example of those limitations, just give one or two examples where you
some of the ones that I've shared with you previously, like the fact that Nomos can't pull consolidated reports and that Nomos is not able to translate in the system. We translate outside of the system. So what I was going to say now is one of those, or rather the main tool would have been our Power BI report, which is what we're using to consolidate and translate.
Now, could be losing you. I don't know whether it's just on my side.
Yeah. That's fine.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear.
Yes, okay. It's okay for me as well.
Might be a network because we all dropped. I dropped as well, Pariksha.
Okay, so it's probably something at the office.
Yeah.
Okay. So
translation of the Nomos Power BI assistance.
Yeah, so the Power BI file then assists us in terms of consolidating and translating the reports so that we can then do our quarter end checks and then also do our year end reporting.
So Deloitte helps in that, right?
They helped in terms of developing the tool, the Power BI report. So they are no longer involved.
They are no longer involved. They earlier, okay.
Correct. We did a handover process.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah, we did a handover process to our DT team. And so currently from a DT team, Gerard has given us resources to assist with any issues in our Power BI file. We are currently working with Marlo in the DT team who works with Gerard.
What's DT? What's DT team?
Digital technology. So our IT team.
Okay.
Yeah. to upgrade our Power BI model so that it is more efficient in terms of reporting.
Okay. And audits also, are you involved in any audit help, audit support, etc. for leases?
Maybe you can explain what you mean by audit support?
Means in auditor are coming and they wanted certain information. Then you pull the data, make it more readable, and then send it to audit team. Are you involved in that as well, or is this not on that scope?
So I have SOX controls that are related to different points in the leases process. I would complete those SOX controls, which Salia would review, and those then go to internal audit and to external audit if and when they request them.
Okay.
I think, Vinit, it's important. I mean, it's important that, so it's probably just over a year now because we went live, Nonku, with Nomos last year, August, right? Where we fully went live with actually Nomos last year, August. So it's just a year, it's 1 year, 1 month now that we're using the Nomos system. So, I mean, in terms of utilization of the system and the fact, and the work that actually Deloitte did was mainly around the project because they helped with the implementation of the system as part of the project because they actually sold the solution. They actually the implementing partner for Nomos in South Africa, which is why Deloitte actually got involved in this. Yeah. And then as we went through the project and with UET, etc., we found out certain limitations. And it was actually Deloitte themselves that made us certain promises, actually, Nonku, if you can recall, and basically the Nomos team, which is why then they came in to assist, to try and close some of the limitation gaps, by helping to basically design the Power BI file, etc.
Sure. Okay.
Okay. Close the template. Then, as I explained, there would then be our capitalized leases, which move from tab D. They would then be put into the Nomos system. I'm not sure how much detail you would want to see for the system, but
just show the screen and all.
Just the dashboard and yeah.
Just show the dashboard and the screen, a little bit of navigation. But this is important to input the the things in the system.
So this is what the dashboard looks like. We have some global reports here on the left-hand side. These reports are non-financial reports. They relate mainly to lease management. I suppose our profiles have never really been in there, and any preferences have also not been in there. And then we've got all of our organizations running down on
business units, right?
Correct, yeah. Then we have also a sandbox. Nomos was not able to provide us with a sort of separate test environment like what we used to have in TM1. In TM1, we had a separate test environment which actually had a different URL for you to access, and we could, we could scenario plan with our leases in TM1. So the alternative here was to create a sandbox as a separate organization. So we don't have a duplicated environment.
Yes.
I think maybe that would be one of the challenges, if you want to list a challenge, is that if we want to scenario plan with a lease, we need to create that lease from scratch. Whereas previously with TM1, if we wanted to scenario plan, our development environment was an exact duplication of the production environment, and you could go into the lease already without having to, bring it up to speed before you process a modification to see its impact.
From scratch. Okay, so that takes a little bit of time when you create a new. It just applies to new lease, right? New lease.
It will apply to any lease that we would want to scenario plan with.
A scenario plan includes.
Effectively, Vinit, it means that when we do our budgets and when we do our business plans, etc., we want to test what's going to be the impact of this on the life of mine of the operation, and that's where you'd come in and you do scenario planning. But it is again on the pipeline. It is in the pipeline that we've raised with Nomos. Yeah.
Good to know that. Okay, great.
I think to add also is sometimes to see the impact. How I've mentioned previously that we do sometimes get information late. So if you would want to see how that catch up would then impact our reporting, we would want to process it before, yes, so that we can get an understanding of what the figures look like. Also, if we needed to, for example, maybe calculate what a misstatement or a prior period error would look like, we would then want to do something like that in the sandbox.
Very good.
Okay. So this is the Nomos platform. The transactions are all put in here. These are the events that I explained last week that Nomos sends us event reminders. So on the dashboard, it sort of just keeps what's coming up, what's overdue, and it sends email reminders.
Okay.
Yeah. So the regions will come into the Nomos system and they will then extract reports once the transactions have been
so they will take this report
processed
in the Nomos and prepare their journal entry for that.
The journal entries are already in Nomos, but they would prepare it into the format that they need to put into SAP. Yeah, so, but they would be able to explain that more. I'm not too close to that process. Okay.
Good.
So once they extract the journals, they will then process those journals into SAP.
In their SAP, yeah.
Yeah, so for our purposes, on a quarterly basis, we extract the agreement balances report, which is a view of the lease over its lifetime. And then we also extract the journal report from a recoverability perspective. And then another report that we extract is the disclosure report, which assists us with the reconciliation between Nomos and HFM, which is what I explained as well last week. That one is a specific SOX control that we need to do as well. So effectively, everything gets saved on SharePoint. Maybe I can start by showing the SharePoint site while it loads. So we have a SharePoint site. Once we've extracted the reports from Nomos, we save everything onto the SharePoint site. So we would then have financial year folders. In the financial year folders, we would name them monthly because that's how the Power BI has learned to read it. And then we would save the agreement balances report, the disclosure data, which would be our disclosure report, the journal report, and the HFM leases report, which I explained, is our point of view from HFM that we're able to refresh using an extract plug into HFM. And then we also receive the exchange rates. It says here June now because we haven't yet received the September exchange rates, but the Power BI file doesn't run if it doesn't have all of the files in there. So when the September ones come in, I would then put the September exchange rate in there before running the Power BI file.
Okay.
So all the reports then get saved in here. We extract a report for each of the organizations and they all get saved. Yeah.
Okay.
And then Power BI then reads those reports. We tell it from a data perspective. We would just edit the parameters and tell it that in terms of reporting, we are currently reporting for April, for example, and we're reporting on monthly. Here's the number of agreements in Nomos as at April. We had 118 agreements as at April.
Mm-hmm.
The maturity analysis report is not populated during the year. We only populate that at year end because it's also a disclosure item. But it would then read the report and then tell us from a maturities perspective what is due in less than 1 year, what is due between one. Yeah.
But this should be available in Nomos also, right? But this is
connected. It comes from Nomos. It's coming from Nomos, but in Nomos it's in contract currency. What the Power BI does here is that it translates it into USD. It gives us an option to view it in contract currency and also in USD.
Okay.
Then this would be the disclosure report. It would also be consolidated to show in contract currency and then in USD and show a total. It's not populated because from a month-end perspective, we wouldn't have used the disclosure report.
So disclosure report, normally the region fill it, right? And send it to you.
The disclosure report is what we extract from Nomos. So everything that you see now in the Power BI file, has been extracted from Nomos, and and Power BI is reading it from SharePoint.
Okay. No, from the quarterly perspective, the disclosures, right? The template,
Oh,
right?
no,
So those
sorry.
are sent by regions, right? But
That's
you are doing
income
the
statement disclosure.
okay, that isn't okay. And this
Yeah.
disclosure is
Balance sheet disclosure.
okay.
If you look here, this is for the right of use asset,
Okay.
and this is for the lease liability.
Okay.
Yeah. Remember I said that when we designed the Power BI template, we didn't include the functionality to translate the income statement leases, and that's why we're still doing a manual pivot and then translating the pivot to get the USD numbers to get into the financials.
Okay.
Then we have the leases overview report, which is an extract from the agreement balances report. It gives us a view of the lease from its lifetime. So it runs from 2019 until 2035, because that's the last lease that we've got. So you can toggle between if you're looking for a specific view.
Yes.
Yeah.
So basically, the goal is you use this for the purpose of balance sheet disclosure and other reports which you supply to someone.
The regions use this a lot in terms of their month-end processes, as well as for budgeting purposes, because it gives them a longer view of their leases.
Okay.
And it breaks it down in terms of what is the depreciation, what is the interest, so they can use that for detailed budgeting. So this report actually is very important to the regions. It also gives them a view of the lease as it moves in each month across the entire lease's lifespan. Yeah.
So you are the owner of this report and send this report to regions.
We used to publish this report, but we've since had training to upskill the regions in terms of extracting the report themselves. So they can extract it themselves now without my intervention. When we built the report, we built it because we were still publishing and the regions didn't have access to extract their own reports. Then we've got the HFM Nomos Recon. This is done quarterly. You won't see it in this file because it's an April file. Sorry, should have maybe opened a quarter end version of the file. But what it does basically is that it reads from that HFM Excel workbook that you would have seen in the SharePoint, and then it brings the Nomos equivalent, which is coming from this disclosure report. So it basically just takes the disclosure report from Nomos and then puts it in there, but translated in USD. So it's no longer then in contract currency. It would then now appear in USD. We have an adjustment for Tropicana because in Nomos, all of the leases are put in at 100%, but Tropicana is a joint venture and we only have a 70% stake. So we need to minus 30% in order for it to balance, because in HFM, they load Tropicana at 70% and in Nomos, we load Tropicana at 100%. So it's just a little bit of a recon so that we can get to the correct amounts. And then it comes. Yep.
So Nomos is connected to HFM and this is producing that report.
There's no connection. There's no connection. So the Power BI is reading from that HFM leases folder, which is an extract. So here I'm able to pull information from HFM and put it into Excel. And the Power BI reads that information that comes from HFM and it then presents it in this format.
Okay. So it is integrated with Nomos, but for Power BI, basically Excel upload or something like that, right?
There's no integration with Nomos.
Nomos also there is no integration with
no
Power
integration.
BI.
It's on our development pipeline. We've asked them to look into the possibility of creating APIs so that we can connect directly. So all of these reports that you see here, I've actually gone and physically, manually extracted each one, changed the name so that it can be indexed so that Power BI can understand which entity it is and then present it in the format that it is there. So this is all a manual extraction.
Okay. And just to currency purposes, it helps that breakout in USD and otherwise, and for a specific reports perspective.
Yeah, and for
but the source is you download the data from Nomos and then upload in Power BI to make it happen.
So I download the data from Nomos, I index it, and then Power BI is able to read it.
Okay.
because the report will come out saying agreement balances report, and it will indicate the date, and then it will stop there. It won't show me which organization it came from. So I need to, after extracting it, I need to save it and change the name before uploading it onto SharePoint.
Got it.
Yeah.
And do you send this report also to the regions
They're able to extract it themselves.
now? Okay.
Yeah.
You just upload it and okay, got it.
Yeah. Then this computes variances for us. And remember, I told you last week, if we have a variance of more than $2 million,
$2
then
million.
we follow up. So this was the most important reason why we needed the translation, because we needed to be able to see on a quarterly basis that the regions are actually processing the transactions, and also that we get our current and non-current split correct in terms of the liability, because in previous years we had a finding around an incorrect split for the current and non-current liabilities.
Okay.
We've also then got the GL codes, because in Nomos, it's not possible that when you pull the journals that it pulls with the specific GL code. So the regions are then able to pick up the GL codes from here by linking it to the account number that Nomos would then have pulled or would have provided. And then we just keep a data check to make sure that we've got all the files that we need before we run the report, and the exchange rates for the specific month would then be detailed here. You won't see it here because the folder that it's reading from is a different folder. The Power BI file is currently undergoing upgrade, and so we can only use the new file once the upgrade has gone through the entire control change management process. We're looking to have that up and running by the end of this quarter.
Say that again.
We're looking to have the new file, the upgraded file, up and running by the end of this quarter.
Upgraded file. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so this is our Power BI file, our
The three I
consolidation
loaded this
and translation tool. Yeah.
Very good.
Okay. That is the leases process.
Yes. Nini, thank you. So this is important. That have recorded also, so that I will put that recording there. I noted the name of the reports as well. So I think this is a good overview. And for rest of the things we discussed last time, so I have those things as well.
Okay. I think what I can also do when I send the email is to maybe just include which SOX controls
sure.
are relevant to the lease process.
Yes.
Very good.
All right. Any other questions, Andre?
No, not for the moment. I'm going to analyze also the documents, and then if possible, maybe we can schedule another session just to discuss different practices. So maybe you, Vinat, you can share some other practices that Genpact applies or that you could see as best practices. And I can also, from my side, take some good practice that I was dealing with in my previous experiences, and then we can discuss on how we could integrate that, because it doesn't matter the location, so the objective is also improve the process. So maybe we can bring some ideas together, we can discuss how the process design could be, and maybe it's going to be interesting.
Those sessions would be there when I will be designing the day one and all the improvement opportunities and all. We'll discuss all that. Definitely. All right. Thank you, Nanku, for this information. And just send us the file. In case you are uploading it, send us a link. So wherever you feel comfortable.
Yeah, I'll probably put them in a zip folder and then just email it.
Okay.
I'll reply all to your email, because then at least I'll know that the people who need it have it. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Very
Thank
good.
you.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. See you.
Bye.
Bye.
So